Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. We're glad you're here. Subscribe to this channel. Give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. Subscribe to it. Share it with your friends.
We do appreciate that as well. All right, John. So, with Jimmy Garoppolo's thumb being reevaluated as this week goes on and him missing practice, the question becomes, could Trey Lance be the Niners' starting quarterback against the Texans? Could Trey Lance be the quarterback that has to take the 49ers to the playoffs? He went from having his best practices of his career over the last 4 weeks, as Kyle Shanahan has said, to now maybe being in a spot for must-win football games. When Adam Schefter tweeted that Jimmy Garoppolo's thumb injury could be more significant than believed previously, Matt Barrows followed it up with, this in conjunction to Shanahan pumping up Trey Lance today, best month of practice ever, makes you think it's going to be Trey Lance versus Davis Mills on Sunday.
You know the irony of this game happening is he would be playing a rookie quarterback, again, who's played a lot more than him. But Davis Mills had a stretch of football from week 3 to week 8 where he was the Texans starter. I haven't done too much Texans research, so I have to go. Did he get hurt? Maybe they just went back to Tyrod. They weren't winning.
I thought maybe Tyrod then got healthy and they went back to Tyrod. Was it that?
I think that sounds right. From week 8 to, again, week 14, basically, he disappeared, Guy. In these last 3 weeks, he's thrown 5 touchdowns and 1 pick. And they've obviously won 2 of the 3 games. I think they're pretty bullish on Davis Mills right now. So don't parallel exactly, but I think it's fair to say we did a topic, and we talked about it a bunch because of what Matt Mayoko said on his podcast, and he alerted us to what Fred Warner had said, after what the Atlanta game, how well he was playing, and this was before Jimmy was ever in any danger of not starting. If Jimmy does not hurt his thumb, he's a lock to start till the season ends. Whether that's week 18, whether that's in the first round, whether that's in the second round, we had seen it. I do think, though, it's going to be viewed a little bit. There'll be anticipation just because there's so much unknown. He's only played a game and a half. But I do think we'd view it a little bit different. Like, are we just going to get that Arizona game plan, which at the time, they were one of the best teams in the league. You could argue the best team in the league. And that defense was, when they were fully healthy, you could argue was kind of, the way they were built to handle a guy like Trey Lance, right? They don't have many Kinlaws on the defense. They have a lot of athletic Buda Bakers, Isaiah Simmons, Chandler Jones. They draft the dude from, I think, Collins in the first round in the middle. They have a lot of athletic guys that can fly around. And Trey had some success running, but remember the play on the goal line where Isaiah hit him? Like, they were equipped to handle that. Now you get a Texans defense. Are you going to run? It's going to sound like I'm talking shit, but I'm just a remedial type offense relative to what Kyle normally does. Or are they going to run now that he's been around the team for a while? But really, the way they've described him in practice is once they go to the team stuff, not with Jimmy, he's overrunning the opposing team's offense. So I guess you naturally, through not osmosis, but just being there every day, you would just learn the offense more. You sit next to Jimmy every day in practice. Kyle,
he is the backup quarterback. I mean, at some point he's got to run some plays that they run on their.
Yeah, so like when they hand out, the 3-ring binder maybe it comes on the iPad now in 2021 of the game plan. Like, it's not like Trey doesn't get the offensive game plan, right? he has to be ready. But if I told you in one of these random games the last 2 months since Jimmy came back, if Jimmy had gone out in just a random play in the second quarter, are they just running the game plan or do they shift the plays to when Trey goes in? Probably. Hard to know.
Yeah, based on what we saw them do when he played, but that was a long time ago, to your point on Davis Mills, right? That was a long time ago. Things change. Players change. Players evolve.
Davis has, though, probably 6. I mean, he's got almost 10. I mean, this will be his 10th start of the season. Yeah, that's a lot of playing time.
Part of Trey Lance, we always say this about good coaches, it's about finding what your players do well and adjusting to them. But part of Trey Lance being Kyle Shanahan's quarterback is because Kyle Shanahan thinks that Trey can do the things that he wants to do most in his offense. Because Trey Lance got under center, because Trey Lance threw to the fullback, because Trey Lance ran play action, all of these things in college, his skill set If you just described his skill set, you go, why can't that guy do the stuff that Kyle Shanahan wants? Shouldn't take a lot physically. So,
Schaub and Matt Ryan thrived in it, right? And they're average to below athletes relative.
I wonder. I think one of the interesting things to watch will be that, and if he starts the game and has to play a couple of weeks, or maybe they play a couple of weeks and make the playoffs, let's say he plays 3 weeks of football. What did Kyle Shanahan learn from the first go round with Trey when he played a game and a half? And did he spend any more time getting Trey ready to run his offense? Did he spend any more time thinking about how do I have to call a game if Trey Lance gets in the game? I think one thing is clear this year, and I think it's clear, that this did not quite go as Kyle thought it would. Kyle was drawing plays up on the private jet back from Justin Fields' pro day for Trey Lance. I doubt that binder was called 2023 offense. Like, Kyle thought that he could, and he's basically said as much, that he'd be able to work Trey Lance in this year. And it didn't happen. But he still is his backup quarterback. I mean, he knows enough to know he drafted Trey Lance, he says, because Jimmy gets hurt. I don't believe that was why. It's because Jimmy wasn't good enough. But if you got a starting quarterback that's been hurt almost every year, then you have to, on some level, be prepared to play the backup quarterback. So I think we would see some of the stuff that we're used to seeing with Kyle Shanahan. How could we not? How could he? Because wouldn't you say some of the stuff he does is kind of easy on the quarterback? Now, some of the responsibilities are hard, right? The play calls are long, and but some of the plays themselves, the action that's required, Trey should be able to handle.
Yeah, and you would just, part of the way a football practice is set up, before you break into team elements, he is taking the reps of when they're in individual and group settings of just the play action looks, right? I would imagine if you went to a Kyle Shanahan practice once the season starts, him and Jimmy rep the same things before they go their separate ways, right? Because the way a football practice operates is you are with your position group for a while. Because some of those people with Trey Lance that are running the scout team are offensive and defensive linemen. Well, they start with, if you're the fourth, fifth string defensive end, you do start next to Bosa and Armstead at practice and go over what Kasarik wants you to do. Because in those other positions, you are just more likely to you can just rotate in a game. It's one thing that I think when that happened in the preseason game, we could this really happen? And then we realized fast, no, it's not going to happen like that. And even, did you see a couple weeks ago, Matt Rule was like, we might platoon Sam Darnold and Cam Newton. And then that just did not happen. That does not happen in the NFL.
Well, they played both of them. It just didn't go well.
Yeah, well, it's not even possible to really function that way. But the one thing I think we thought we would still get, which he hasn't played a game since week 11. And when I say play a game, been in the game. We didn't even get a goal line situation, a short yardage situation. And in fairness, Jimmy's, probably one of the better quarterback sneakers in the league. He is pretty good at that. Maybe just comes from his time in New England, but that's a go-to 49er play. So they haven't had to use him. But I saw someone, I don't know, I saw it on Instagram or I don't know, but remember that goal line play against the Packers where he just randomly threw Trey Lance in and it was sweet. Damn, they just stopped doing that. That was kind of a wrinkle that, and maybe, I don't know. I mean, but I actually feel pretty confident after seeing that Schefter tweet and Mayoko talk. I think it's the Trey Lance show from here on out. If I was a betting man,
I do too, because again, it comes on the heels of Kyle Shanahan saying Trey Lance has been practicing very well, right? The carving up the defense story from Mayoko. Fred Warner basically saying the same thing. So if he is what you say he is, it's an easy decision if your quarterback's not close to 100%.
And wasn't part of the Fred Warner story too? It was unsolicited. It's not like John Lynch is like, "Hey man, could you just in one of these press conferences post game after a win just throw in a little bit?" No, it's just. Now I think Fred gets Fred, who do you think is going to be the quarterback for 3 more years? You're under contract for a long period of time. These guys know. It is the tough balance. In basketball, once you get a couple max players, everyone can stay on the team and keep playing, right? In baseball, even if you platoon, in football, when a situation like this happens, the elephant in the room has always been, no matter how much a Peter King wants to be it's not out of the realm of possibility that he returns. Yeah, it is. Just look what they fucking traded for the guy. That would be an unprecedented return for Jimmy Garoppolo to year 2. So you're wasting 2 years of his rookie contract after you traded those picks? I mean, that would be one of the biggest, craziest draft stories of all time, right? If the guy didn't start for 2 years, it's one thing. Jordan Love, like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers on the team, but you're keeping Jimmy Garoppolo? That was never going to happen.
I think what probably was never going to happen was even if they won the Super Bowl, it probably wasn't going to happen. Look how they almost won the Super Bowl the last time. That NFC Championship game? I mean, quarterbacks have been replaced after Super Bowls before. Coaches have done things that seem crazy before. Whether it's Belichick going for it 4th and 1 from his own, whatever it was, 30 or 13 or wherever he was on the field with Kevin Falk. But
you'd agree it'd been
the Ravens replaced Trent Dilfer after winning a Super Bowl, right?
Or the Niners going to win the Super Bowl once we kind of got a feel for their team about midseason?
No, what I'm saying is they certainly weren't going to wear it win it on Jimmy Garoppolo's arm, though.
No.
So I'm saying even in the most extreme case in that scenario where they actually win the Super Bowl, I'm not convinced they would have brought him back even for that. They would have traded him for a first-round pick is what they would have done.
Well, do you think, Alex, if you go back to – because ultimately what the Niners want is they hope this guy is Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Like, that's – when you trade that many picks, you're not hoping that he's Kirk Cousins, right? We understand what they're shooting for here. Do you think Alex's fate was sealed before the season started? Midway through the season? Because if you remember, they won the division, and then they lost a pretty devastating playoff game to Mariota. Like, was that a moment when they're like they had to move, or were they just going to see how it played out?
I don't know. You might know, but you would know better than me on this one. I think his fate was probably sealed once they saw Patrick Mahomes in practice and thought, okay, we can get this guy. We can win with this guy next year.
And then he got to play that last final game that meant nothing to the Broncos, or to their team, but he was pretty good. And if you remember, Andy had his coaches game plan for the playoffs, and he game planned for the game with Patrick. So he spent the whole week just like, because we've talked a lot about Kyle. When you're the play caller, and one thing I do think Bieniemy, it's pretty clear, is calling more plays now. At the time, Andy was definitely the play caller, like Kyle. When you're the play caller, you are so obsessed with that individual game. Like, Andy sees the practice film because he's just a football junkie, but I don't think he's probably working as closely day to day because you're just so obsessed with playing the Chargers, playing the Broncos, playing the Colts, whoever. But that week, you're like, oh my God. I remember him telling me that his recall on stuff blew him away. Just football stuff, like throughout the week. Like, hey, what do you want? Patrick would come to that. I think, it's already set, but he can do a lot to really ingratiate himself to Kyle if he gets the opportunity to start these next 2 weeks, has success, gets a playoff game from just a football standpoint, because you end up working so close. This guy's your offensive play caller, who's also your head coach and, let's face it, the boss of the organization.